pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, no public to be heard? My turn. Good news. I have 3 pages of good news to read, but I am not going to take everybody's time and read 3 pages of good news. I will say we will put this up on our Facebook page and on social media. I want to thank everybody from Jackson, John Kennedy, the middle school, the high school, and from Robert Morse from sending all the good news to us. It's great to see this again. So thank you everybody for that. Also, I just want to say one other thing. I want to congratulate our Batavia Notre Dame United hockey team for winning their first sectional hockey game on Tuesday. They are playing right now in Rochester against Victor, and I believe the score is 2-0. We are down at this time. We'll move on to presentations, which is Mr. Smith.
Yeah, we'll have some special presentations for some special people. And we're going to recognize some longtime employees who have been with us for 25 years. So we usually do this at the start of the school year, but given the change in superintendents, we decided to wait. So I have the honor of having 2 teacher aides and 2 teachers come forward to receive a pin and a certificate. So would Deb Caruso, teacher aide, the middle school, please come forward, Deb? Congratulations, Deb.
Oh, thanks.
Please thank her for a picture, okay? So she can hang on to that. Yeah. And Mary Christner, teacher aide at JK. Mary, please come on up. Congratulations and thank you. Beth Caron Reimer. Beth, please come on up. Congratulations, Beth. 25-year special education teacher, John Kennedy. Middle school now?
I switched.
Okay, congratulations.
She's with us.
And last but not least, Mary Pearl, special education teacher at John Kennedy.
Thank you.
John, you want to join us for a picture? And Trish can take a picture of the class. Yes, you do. Sure, yeah.
Are we supposed to smile?
Oh, get
Smile with your
together a
eyes.
little
That's
bit.
what I tell the kids. Smile with
Alright,
your
I'm gonna
eyes.
come right back to you, but I'm going to. Hold on. Maureen should be up here doing this. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, Mrs. Maureen Notaro and Mrs. Jessica Torrey from Jackson Primary School for the update.
Yeah, the Chrome. At the top, go to the right one. There we go.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Maureen Notaro. I have a little bit of a lost voice, so I'll try to talk loud. I am the principal of Jackson Primary. This is Jessica Torrey, the assistant principal, and we're here to give you an update on all the things that have been going on at Jackson Primary. So our makeup at Jackson Primary, 2 administrators, a nurse, 5 custodians, a security guard, 31 aides, 2 clerical, 1 counselor, 1 social worker, 1 librarian. 2 UPK kids in our Jackson program, and the other kids at the Y. Kindergarten is a big kindergarten at 181, our first grade is at 147. We have 52 teachers, there's BK data, we have 2 special ed rooms, and we have 2 ENI rooms and one, and we've just talked about extended day as we go about. So our goals for the year, MTSS is our multi-tiered support system. That's how we get student support throughout the year. What we do is we streamline the process from last year. We work really hard to identify needs early, especially at this level. We have a lot of community engagement, as you probably see on our social media. We do everything from Fire Safety Month to Community Helper Day, coloring contest, Easter Bunny, moving up ceremonies, mixed teacher nights. So we really try to engage the community as much as we can. Jess will talk about our chronic absenteeism and what we do for that.
Chronic absenteeism, we monitor that every week. We pull our data and, check when kids have 10% or more days that they're missing from school. We work with our counselors, our school social worker. Maureen and I work together. We make phone calls, home visits, and then we do tier 3 support with our social worker as well.
Talk about social health.
Our data for attendance for UPK, 93.15%, K 93.26%, and first grade 93.36%. We're working really hard on social emotional learning. We know that with this year with the pandemic that we have a lot of students coming in that are in need of social emotional learning. So in our school we have a team that meets monthly to talk about this, and then we set forth goals for the school. So we're working on our SELN announcements, staff engagement. We're also working on our green and red choices with consistent use of terms with John Kennedy, so being safe, being respectful, being responsible. We push into classrooms. We're doing meetings about what that looks like in the cafeteria, in the hallway, in the bathroom, in the classroom, on the bus. So we're working really hard to develop that safe, respectful, and responsible behavior in our school.
And also our push this year too is social emotional learning for staff coming out of the pandemic. It's been extremely difficult for teachers to deal with everything we've had to deal with. So we definitely take time for social emotional learning, not just for kids, but for staff too. We have yoga that we do. We have a teacher that volunteers her time, and our staff members do yoga. We do little things here and there. We do like a friends cafe once a month for everybody to just come together in the morning and just sit with each other and just talk before school. So we're really trying to make sure that we keep everybody's social emotional learning in check with the students and with the staff. We think it's important for both to have that engagement.
We have our circle update too, which is consistent with John Kennedy also. So tomorrow we actually have a circle update where Mr. Smith is reading a book about kindness. We have other community volunteers read books about what we're working on for that month, and then students are able to participate in circles as well.
So this Friday we'll start our circle update, and our theme is We Are Family. So every time the students will hear that song, We Are Family, it'll come over the announcements. Everybody stops what they're doing, and we do our circle update. So this month is kindness. So they'll stop, they'll hear Mr. Smith's book, and then they'll work on a circle and talk about what does it mean to be kind? What does that look like, and why is that important? At this age level, we have to teach them young to understand what it means to be kind, because they come in and they love each other. They come in, they're friends, they make friends. So it's really important that we keep that momentum going, especially at this young level. Let's really talk about that. Yep.
So this year we've really worked hard to streamline our MTSS process, which is our multi-tiered systems of support. So we have websites that the teachers can go to, and all of the forms are on there. We meet at our data meetings monthly to talk with teachers about what kids should be recommended. If students are showing academic, areas that they need to work on either socially, academically, so then we meet as a team, and then we work through interventions, and then students are set on a 6-week path. So we meet as a team, decide which interventions are going to work for that student, and then we monitor those interventions for 6 weeks, collecting data, and then we meet again as a team to discuss the process of that student. So we really worked hard on streamlining that process, and we have a lot more students coming through this year with our teacher support.
Giving them all the help they need. So the next thing we're going to talk about, Scarborough's reading rope. So this is really just about students in the primary grades, they're working on foundational skills. So we have 2 new programs, and that's why we have Taviana and Vondell here, the 2 students. They're gonna come up and we're gonna show you what they've been working on. These are 2 new programs to our building this year. So, you know, they're gonna work on the language comprehension and the phonemic awareness. So Taviana and Vondell, if you wanna come up here. So interestingly enough, Taviana and Vondell, Taviana's parents there, they were my former students, and Tyrone here, Taviana's dad. That was my first class. So it's so great for me to be able to see my former students successful with these little cuties. So when they come up, it's just like a nice circle around. So Tyrone and Jesse and Becky, we were close. Okay, so the first thing you're gonna see is you're gonna see Mr. V with Taviana doing Haggerty in the phonemic awareness. So you're gonna,
Yep.
go ahead, wanna explain what that looks like?
So the phonemic awareness piece that we're working on, see Taviana's class, they didn't get the opportunity to do this in pre-K or kindergarten. Our pre-K and kindergartners are doing this now as well. So they started out a little bit disadvantaged in that regard. The main focus with this program is on phonemes and sounds. So it deals really with the spoken language. Everything is auditory. It's a 15-minute lesson. And the students work with manipulating the sounds inside of words. This is a rock star right here. She does an amazing job. So she's going to show you right now. First of all, say hi to everybody, okay?
Hi.
There you go.
Hello.
All right, now you want to turn and look at me, or do you want to look at them? Okay, you ready? Okay, say ill,
Ill.
add sh.
Chill.
Say out,
I.
add sh.
Self.
Say yield,
Ill.
add sh.
Ill.
Say earn,
And.
add sh.
Shun.
Okay, now let's do where we take away. Say shore,
Shore.
without the sh.
Or.
Say these,
These.
without the.
These.
Say chase,
Face.
without the ch.
Face.
Okay, if you want to segment some words for us, can you say chess?
Chest.
Can you break it in sounds for me?
S.
Okay, you can tap those for me, okay? Say ship,
Ship.
break it into sounds.
It.
Perfect. Say chill,
Or.
break it into sounds.
Ill.
Yep, perfect. All right, you ready? Say share,
Share.
change it to,
Fair.
yep, say chop,
Chop.
change it to sh.
Shop.
Say thin,
Thin.
change it to ch.
Chin.
Say wheat,
Wheat.
change it to sh.
Sheep.
Perfect. One more for you. We're going to isolate the middle vowels. You ready? Say chose.
Chose.
What's the middle vowel you hear?
O.
And is it a long vowel or a short vowel?
Long.
How do you know it's a long vowel?
So with me.
And what vowel is it, by the way?
O.
Perfect. One more. Say shock.
Chop.
What's the middle vowel you hear?
O.
What sound is it, though?
Ah.
Ah. And it's an O. Is it a long vowel or a short vowel?
Short.
Short vowel. Perfect. Great job.
Thank you,
Thank
Taviana. So if you know, through the reading rope, obviously at the end we want to get to skilled readers, and all of these things are important with the background knowledge, vocabulary, decoding to create fluency. So we have one job at Jackson, the foundational skills, to get them leaving Jackson with these important skills that are in place. So that's just a portion of part of the program that I wanted you to see. That's new this year that Dr. Corey brought into the elementary schools. So Vondell's up next. This is Vondell. Can you say hi, Bonnie? Everybody say hi. That's Bonnie. He's a little nervous, but he's going to be okay. So Vondell is going to do foundation. Bonnie, ready to look at Mrs. Corey?
So just like Mrs. Nataro said, these pieces over here are the foundational skills. So it's really important that we're working at this level right here to create skilled readers down the line. So we're going to be talking about this part right down here, which is the phonological awareness, the decoding, and the sight recognition. So in kindergarten, it's really important, letters and sounds. So this is just a little bit of a drill practice that they do in kindergarten. For Vondell, he's going to show us how they do drill practice for their letters and sounds. Are you ready, Vondell? Go ahead. Good. Can you be nice and loud?
I, H, H,
Very good.
H, F, H. U, Up,
Very, that's a tricky one, huh?
P, Q, W, air,
What is that?
wind,
Wind. What sound does, think about that. W, wind.
war,
Very good. One more. Ready?
X, box.
Excellent
job. So Jess and I get to see this every day, and it's adorable. And the teachers have worked really hard to really implement this program in the Tier 1 process, so everybody's getting the same thing. So all kindergarten teachers, all first grade, all UPK, even doing exposure, is doing the exact same thing. So that's really important as we move down that continuum to make sure that they're leaving Jackson with those foundational skills. This is just, what we talked about before. I have one-to-one data meetings with teachers. We collect a lot of data. So we really watch every student on a monthly basis. So Jess and I meet with teachers one-on-one, and we have really good conversations about exactly what that student needs. Our academic intervention services, we did an exercise last week to really figure out who needed what and put them in programs that are really meaningful to help them move along to get where they need to be. So that's really important, that I think that we're making really good instructional decisions based on data, based on exactly what they need. It's almost like we write a prescription for each student for what they need. If they're missing letters, if they're missing sounds, if they're missing blends, we write that prescription and we put them in a group for 6 to 8 weeks, and we watch the interventions and we make sure they're getting exactly what they need.
For Extended Day, we are actually finishing up our first session of Extended Day right now. So we have 60 students in our Extended Day program, which is a great opportunity for our kids at Jackson. And we have students that are working on Extended Day. They're working on remedial skills, so that need extra help, a little bit of extra practice. And then we have some students that are there for enrichment also. So we have our Extended Day running for our UPK kids all the way up to our first grade kids. So that's been a great experience for our students also.
So I talked about this before, I feel like it's really important to engage in the community. Jess and I are both Batavia grads, Batavia born and raised, so we're a Batavia admin team. So we really have connections in the community. If we need something, it's no problem to call somebody up and ask. So we really are just trying to always think of the next best thing. I always try to lead with a kid's lens, no matter what. I always think about what is best for kids. Even though sometimes it's difficult and other, people are saying things in your ear, it's always for me and Jess, what do the kids need? What's going to make them happy? And we always try to show up for kids.
Something great that you're going to see highlighted pretty soon. Emily Benedict came in to do a spotlight article for us the other day, is that we're working with the high school students for the Intro to Education class, and they're coming down to Jackson and working with our first graders on our junior achievement program. So that's a partnership that we have with the Batavia Education Alliance, Community Schools Organization, and the high school.
It's the Intro to Education students at the high school that come down and teach lessons to our little ones. This is just a Lolly agency donating school supplies. We've made over a couple $1,000 in fundraisers already. Our teacher and I brought in over $600. We're constantly on social media. I just checked our post reach this week, and it was like 5,800 people that we reached through our social media. So our main way to reach parents is through Facebook. We have a very, very active social media. People comment, I think for me, it's all about communication. No one's ever going to say they don't know what's going on in Jackson. I always try to be super communicative, whether it's a robocall or put it on social media, just so that, making sure that everybody knows exactly what to expect and what's next. And we try to line up with the other schools. So if there's like a day everybody's dressing up, we'll try to line up with JK. So if parents have multiple kids, they don't have to worry about, wear blue this day, wear crazy socks that day. We're trying to streamline it all. So, and then, we have a Facebook page, we have the Instagram page, and we're on Twitter. Questions for us?
Good job, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh, thank you for your support.
Okay, next up, senior trip proposal. Mrs. Lorraine Damick, special education teacher, and Miss Mackenzie Lavery, class president.
tonight to request permission to take a senior trip, technically 2 senior trips. So the first trip is to Camp Del Maris, which is on Canisius Lake. As 6th graders, we all went with Mr. Knapp and Miss Woodward. We had a lot of fun that day, and a lot of us have a lot of memories, so I think it'd be a good trip to take back for memory's sake. And okay, so the cost of this trip is $50 per person, and will include all the fun activities that you see, like zip lining, the pamper pole, high ropes course, yard games, a bunch of stuff. It's very fun. The second trip we'd like to take is to Allegheny State Park. Camp Allegheny is a fully equipped year-round group camp for use as an educational and recreational facility. It is located in the Red House area of Allegheny State Park. It's fully electrified with its own water supply, and there's 5 buildings included. They include 2 dormitory complexes, recreational hall, dining and kitchen facility, and a classroom. There's also a picnic pavilion on site, and the camp is designed to house a maximum of 74 guests overnight. Camp Allegheny also offers a lot of fun activities. We can go swimming, kayaking, canoeing, and fishing. We're planning a beach party and hiking. There's a nighttime walk with the park, and a laser tag night by Jeff Smith and his company, Legendary Mobile Laser Tag. The cost of this trip is also super affordable. It's $100 per student. And we're in the process of applying for a Connect Kids to Parks grant that was recommended to us by the park manager, Timothy O'Keefe. We will have a better estimate of the cost for all students once the grant is completed.
One of the things about the trip to Allegheny, it comes with some limits. We can only take, because of the dormitory accommodations in this park, we can only take 34 boys and 34 girls. And as of just before the meeting, when I checked our sign-up sheet, we had 38 girls signed up and 10 boys. So there's the way the dorms are laid out there. I used to teach the 12-1-1 special ed class, and I've taken them to this camp on an overnight, which we had so much fun on. So I'm really familiar with the layout there. Both dormitories have like an east and a west end, and it's divided. If we had to house girls and boys in one dormitory, there is separation. My personal preference is girls in one building, boys in the other building. Would be my personal preference, but we could make it work if we had to put more girls. Like I said, right now we only have 10 boys that have signed up to go, but the girls have been all about it.
Yes. So you could do one or the other of these, or you could do both. So that being said, does anyone have any questions?
How many seniors do we have this year?
I'm
How
sorry.
many seniors do we have this year?
I believe there's 164, I think. Yeah, one of the things, our funding, in the class treasury, we don't have a lot of money because of COVID. So the kids had said, we want to go to Boston. And so we contacted First Choice Travel. They put together a Boston package for us. It was going to be $700 a piece. And they would still need spending money. And I had a few parents approach me and say, can we find something that is a little more affordable that would allow other kids, to go? So First Choice put together a Cleveland package for us, and that Cleveland trip was over $600, less than $700, but it was over $600. And myself, having gone to Allegheny with the 12-1-1 class, knowing what they have and what is there for them to do, I contacted the park manager, Mr. O'Keefe, and he was like, absolutely, we could come and do that. So it is affordable. It is not what every kid wants to do. I've already had kids try fishing there. And one of the things he had told me in the beginning was, if the boys want to fish, I don't know why he automatically said boys, because I'm a fisherwoman, they had to have a fishing license. So I emailed him today to say, isn't there any way we can let some kids try fishing without having to purchase a New York State fishing license? So before the meeting, I had not heard back from him. So those were the options that we had investigated this year for them.
What are some of the funding plans that you have, fundraisers?
Well, actually, Mr. O'Keefe put me in touch with the environmental educator at the park, and she said to me right away, have you applied for the Connect Kids to Parks grant, which I didn't know anything about. Mrs. Corey told me, Dr. Corey, excuse me, told me to check. We've had some teachers here at the high school, Mr. Weicher and Mr. Howell have both used that grant, and they said go for it. That it was an easy grant to fill out, and they paid everything. The grant paid everything. That being said, busing was an issue. I think that was on the slide, the one slide. Are we going to take a school bus or a motor coach? I talked to Mr. O'Gene at the first student, first student, and he said that we would have to fit within the parameters of their bus schedule. So we would not be able to go until after the morning bus run was done, and we would have to return either at 11:30 in the morning, so they were back before the afternoon run, or we would have to wait and not return until they were done with the afternoon run and drove the 2 hours to Allegheny to get us. Allegheny, if you're not familiar with it, is pretty remote, and I was like, I really wanted to have a bus there. It's a huge park, and there are two very big lakes, and I wanted to have a bus there, so if we have a group of kids that want to go down to Quaker Lake and do the stuff down there, and they were like, we can't do that because of the bus driver shortage. We do not have enough drivers to do that. So when I found out about the park grant, Adele told me, she said, we've had people come in a motor coach, and it was paid for by the grant. So contacted Five Star Tours and Travels is the only motor coach company I could find at this point who have buses that are available. All the others are like, we're already booked for that time of year. But they said, yes, they could work with us, and the grant will pay for that. That being said, in our class budget, we typically, a senior class has about $10,000 in their class account at this point. We have I think we're $50 shy of $4,000. So we are in a big deficit. So the park grant will pay for that, would pay for the busing. It would also pay for the whole rental of the facility. It will pay for our dumpster. It will pay for the laser tag guy to come. I was really surprised how much they would pay for. So what the expenses that the money would be taking in for the trip, well, if we go on with a travel agency, all the food, I don't have to do that, but we are going to have to prepare and purchase all the food that we will have on that trip. Breakfast. We actually are having a catered dinner the one night. We're having a beach party night, and we have a caterer I'm working with out of Bradford, Pennsylvania, who's put together an awesome menu. And she's going to come, and we're going to have a beach party the one night. That'll be covered by the caterer. But breakfast will be the chaperones and me cooking. The easy things for breakfast we're going to do. Lunch on the second day was, trying to remember my itinerary. On the second day we were going down to Quaker Lake, and at Quaker Lake they had tore down the old building there and built a brand new big building, has a restaurant in it. The kids will do lunch on their own at Quaker Lake that day, and then when we come back that night, it'll be our beach party. The first night there, the chaperones are going to be cooking hot dogs, hamburgers, and Mr. Smith volunteered to come and help us cook. So with all of that, the grant would be, we have to pay for everything up front, and then we're reimbursed afterwards. And we don't have enough money in our account to do that. So talking with Mr. Rosansky and Mr. Smith, they said they can front that money, and then the checks will come back to the district when we're reimbursed from the grants.
When do we find out about the grant?
It's in the process of being done right now. One of the things with the grant proposal, we had to know specifically what kids want to go because they pay double for any student with a disability, a 504 or an IEP. Those kids, they instead of paying $40 per kid, they'll pay $80 per kid. So it was like, okay, well, we can't apply for the grant until we know what kids are going. So we had a meeting with the seniors this week, and as of today, we have 8 kids, it was 8, with 504s or IEPs that have signed up to go. So we can put that money, we can put those totals into the grant. So Mr. Cavallo, I'm not the only advisor. Andy Cavallo is also a co-advisor with me, and he is doing the grant application. So that information is passed on to him today. As of today, that's where we stand.
How many chaperones would go on this overnight?
Mr. Kessler's recommendation to us is 1 chaperone for every 8 students. And I would also, approached Mr. Burke about coming with us to do like a night security thing, that he would be there at night so the chaperones can sleep. He would keep an eye on things. We also are requesting to take the school van with us because of the remoteness of where we are. God forbid, if someone was to get injured and we had to take a trip to the hospital or something like that, we don't have to take a motor coach. We can use the school van to get them. I know from my own camping at Allegheny, if there is ever a severe injury there, it's an air helicopter ride. They take them by helicopter because of the remoteness of it.
Mackenzie, you think this is what the seniors want to do?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
This is what they picked. I mean, we put all the trips out to them, and in a senior poll, this was the trip with the most votes.
Yeah, there was a poll with all the things we were debating on which one, and this one was. So.
You guys have any questions?
I will always buy a candy bar or something like that, so I'm serious, you throw in those sidebar little, fundraisers that, might be helpful, maybe not, trust me, just let me know.
Okay.
I still got people asking me about Zappa snacks, so. Is that it? Is this something we vote on now, or is it?
It's later on. It's not on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, the vote now?
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion.
So move,
So moved by,
so move to accept.
Ms. Bowman, and second
Second.
by Mr. Regal.
And are we approving both trips?
Yes.
My understanding was the other trip is just like a school field trip. Right. Wouldn't necessarily, but the overnight is what we need the approval for. Okay.
I would say I would so move for both. trips.
Roll call.
Yes, please.
Mrs. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Riegel,
Absolutely.
Mr. Roll,
Yes.
Mrs. Lenve.
Yes.
Mr. Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the trip.
Thank you.
We're just going to pause for a second to bring our next guest in via Google.
This is Mr. Seversky.
Yes.
You guys want an update on the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Update on the game. Going into the third period, we are down 4-0. This is good. Hey, they're playing a good team. Victor's a good team.
Hello.
Hello, hi Paul.
Hi, how are you all?
Good.
That sounds like fun, going down to Allegheny. They'll have a lot of fun. Hi. How are you all? That sounds like fun, going down to Allegheny. They'll have a lot of fun.
Is that coming from you, Nick? Is that coming from him?
Are you also watching the live stream?
No, I just clicked it off.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
thank you.
All right, so next is enrollment projection presentation from Mr. Paul Seversky.
Hi, everybody. You have hard copies of the study, as well as I think you received before the demographic profile of the district. Unless you have questions about that profile, I think we'll focus in on the enrollment projection study. The census profile, I would suggest to you, is a really valuable tool for you and the board and Jason and the team. Maybe if you do a retreat this year, you may want to spend some time and go over that. It gives you a good 10-year picture of the demographic change that's occurred within the school district. It can be pretty valuable as you look toward the future and the kinds of things that you may want to emphasize more or consider. Okay? But if you look at the enrollment projection study, we just have a few minutes together. I'm going to touch upon the highlights because I really would like to make sure we have plenty of time for any questions that you might have. So if you look at the enrollment projection study, probably the first place to begin is let's look at your historical pattern of enrollment, and that will start on page 3. By the way, when we do an enrollment projection study, it's really about the study of patterns, historical patterns, and it's also a study of looking at things and items that may influence future enrollments. And that's what we do in this study. So if you look at page 3, you'll notice that from 2016 to the current year, you have had slightly declining enrollment of about 4.9%. For upstate New York, and not just upstate, even downstate New York, 3 to 5% decline is actually not bad news. Stable is the best of news, of course. Increasing enrollment is even better, but unfortunately there aren't many districts experiencing an increase in enrollment over the past 6 to 10 years. So you're at 4.9% decrease. Let's dig a little deeper though, because there's some, even though it's a minus, there is some good news in how that 4.9% comes about. Take a look at page 4. At the top of page 4, you'll see what's occurred. That 7 through 12 has had a minor decrease in enrollment over the past 6 years compared to K through 6. Now, that really is not good news because you know what happens with K6 kids. They become your 7 through 12 kids. However, let's dig a little deeper. If you look at the chart 3, you'll see that the real good news here is that your K1 enrollment, your youngest students, your youngest clients, have actually increased over the past 6 years. Now that is good news because again, they become your 4, 5, and they become your 6 through 12. So that's good news as a pattern of your youngest kids is actually increased. You'll see where the bulk of the decrease is in 5 through 8 compared to 9 through 12 and 2 through 4. Okay? So the other factor looking at not only historically with enrollments, but looking at live births. That's how we get our clients. Either they're born in our district or they're born somewhere else, of course, and move into the district. Well, let's take a look at live births in Genesee County as well as the catchment area that the school district is a part of, and then the school district. Take a look at page 10, if you would. For Genesee County since 2009, there's been a steady decrease in live births. Not uncommon. In most, and not just upstate, in most counties of the state. However, that the rate of decline for Genesee County actually is better than many other counties in the state. Other counties in the state are experiencing a more severe decline than Genesee County has since 2009. Well, let's look at the live births of the school district. This tells a better tale. Take a look. Regardless of what's been happening in Genesee County and the statewide and nationally, since 2010, your live births in your school district have remained stable. That's excellent news. Stable is good. Really good. Now, will that continue? I'm not a soothsayer. Unfortunately, last month, the New York Times reported that between 2019 and 20, there was a 7.5 decrease in live births nationwide. Does that mean that the same decrease will happen in Batavia? I can't say. I really don't like to use national data to try to apply to a school district even as large as Batavia. So just heads up that there is overall in this past 2 years of that we've all been challenged, overall nationally there's been a major decrease in live births. But let's see what happens with regard to Batavia. But the good news is that your live births have remained stable, which means that, and that ties right in with what's been happening. Notice what we just said earlier, your K-1 enrollment actually has gone up some over the past 6 years. So you got two pieces of good news that correlate to each other. Well, take a look at page 11. This shows what's happened the past 6 years. Again, a little bit better than stable. You've had small, but still growth in live births in the school district. Taking into account what's happening in Genesee County as a whole, this is actually outstanding news. The population of Batavia are staying and continue to, families are having kids in Batavia. Page 12 gives you a fast, quick way of comparing the county, the school district, and what I call the catchment area. The catchment area, as you know, school districts cross many towns. So the catchment area are all of the towns that you have a piece of, but don't forget, other school districts have pieces of those same towns. So you'll notice Genesee County, that rate of decline of a slope of -9. Remember in 7th grade math, the slope of a line. But look at the catchment area, still less of a slope in decline compared to the county. But look at the good news with Batavia again. You're slightly in decline, but almost stable compared to the towns that you are a part of and the county. Okay. Now, let's look at kindergarten enrollments for Batavia. Page 13. If you look at over the past 10 years, you've experienced a slight decline looking at 10 years worth of data. A slight decline, a -1 slope. Okay? You were at 193 in 2012, and you are at 181 now. 12 fewer kindergartners over 10 years. Yes, a decline, but from one who helps a lot of districts in the state, that is a minor decline compared to many, many other school districts throughout. Upstate, downstate, doesn't matter. So, yes, it's 12 fewer. However, let's go look at what's happened the past 6 years. Look what's happened to your kindergarten the past 6 years. Very good news. You've increased, in 2016, you had 159 children, and in 2021, you have 181. regardless of all the challenges we've been facing, particularly over the past 2.5 years, in particular, Batavia has actually had families who have added more children to the district than you had born in 2016. Very good news, especially for the future, as again, children born means potential clients to be served by the school district. Now, I don't want to spend time with it, even though I think it's important, but I want to move on because I want to make sure you have time for questions. So you might want to just put a mark on page 15, 16, and 17. Those pictures are pretty revealing of what's occurred in the relationship between live births and the number of children who've enrolled in Batavia public schools. Okay? We'll come back to that if there's time. But if there isn't time and you have a question, please remember my services go through June. So if you have a question for Jason or Scott, tell them. More than happy to, they can ask me the question, they can call me and we can have a conversation. So it doesn't all have to be sponged tonight. So if you have a question, we'll be glad to help you right through June. It's part of the service. My goal is to help you use this as a tool for your planning. So let's take a look at some factors that might influence beyond historical pattern of enrollments that might influence your future enrollments. If you take a look at page 24, now, the migration from one school year to the next are taken into account in the calculations. It's America. Someone on June 30th can say, well, we're moving, or we're doing something else. So from one year to the next, the study shows what your opening enrollments were at a school year compared to the previous school year. But this, on page 24, talks about internal migration or migration within the school year, which I would suggest is more challenging programmatically for your teachers and for your team. Again, just like the two nice teachers who were sharing what they were doing in reading, they're still responsible when the youngster moves in or moves out during the school year for their education. It makes it very difficult when there's a high migration rate. Okay? So, if you'll take a look, your migration rate, K-12, during the school year, they show up first day of school, and between the first day of school and the last day of school, on average over the past 5 years, you have a 10% rate of annual migration. That means 10% of the children, 1 out of 10 kids' faces change during the school year. That's a bit of a challenge, but it's not as big of a challenge as other schools that often have 20 to 25%. So absolutely, it's 1 out of 10 children's change as a client during the school year. So I suggest some questions that the principals in particular with teachers, how can working together, can you mitigate the impact of that kind of change on success for kids and also impact on the work of teachers? Your biggest migration, which is interesting because you've had the largest increase year to year in K1, but notice at the bottom of page 24, you have almost a 13% during the school year migration of K1 kids in and out of the district. Isn't that ironic? Your biggest jump or highest jump of incline in increase in enrollment is K1, but the K1 is also most affected by during the year in and out. Okay? And as we all know, that those early years are the most critical for children. So there's some reason why there's an in and out going on. Could be financial, could be parents having moved because of rental. We don't know. But if you do keep data of why children leave during the year, it's something you may want to look at, like the principals may want to look at. See, why is Mary or John or Paul's family moving during the school year? So that gives you that. The key, though, is that the data suggests the migration during the school year as well as between school years does not suggest you have private school flight, where people are not happy with the school and they're going to private schools. There's no data to show that. In fact, let's give you some finer tuned data on page 27. On page 27, we show the non-public private school enrollments that you've had and homeschool enrollments. Yes, COVID did have an effect not only in your school district, but other school districts. Take a look at 2020. You had 75 children homeschooled compared to the previous year in 2019, only 46. The good news is, look what happened in 2021. You dropped down to 52. What does that say? It says, well, COVID was the factor why you had that jump in all likelihood in 2020, but more households felt comfortable having their children attend school starting September 21. If you look at the non-public enrollment in the boxes just above that, in 2020, you had 137, for example, 9 through 12 children go to private school, but in 2021, you had 174. That's something you may want to look at and think about. If you have either personal knowledge, principals have personal knowledge of various families, why they made the choice to, in 2021, to go to a private school. Something to, that's why I suggest that, I mean, not necessarily right away just because of this, but, you know, on page 28, I suggest that you may want to have ongoing attention to track private school and homeschool enrollment data. You may want to have a communication strategy that with current non-public families that you help encourage them to look at Batavia and what a public school has to offer and get feedback from them. It's not so much trying to convince people not to send their children to a public school, but they're taxpayers too. So reaching out, we can always learn from folks with maybe a different perspective. So it's a very positive kind of thing. You may want to take the opportunity to do that. Another area that can affect future enrollments is what do you do to help all of your current children, youngsters, young people, stay in school to graduation. And page 29 tells a heck of a story, I think, as an outsider. It kind of ties into what those two early childhood teachers were sharing with you earlier. Remember what they were saying about AIS and almost a prescription for each child? Well, take a look at your total non-completers. In 2015, you had 14 non-completers, 14 children that don't show up on the enrollment because they're gone, because they left school. Notice in 1920, that dropped consistently from 2015 to 2019-20, you had 4 non-completers. You, in essence, had 10 more children stay enrolled compared to 15-16, which suggests that your work with AIS, helping youngsters individually achieve and have a chance to complete high school, seems to be working. It's not me saying that as an outsider, your data says that, and I congratulate you for that. Now, it's still 4 kids. There are no throwaway youngsters, so certainly continued attention with your AIS and work, like the work you just saw tonight with those 2 teachers with early childhood, certainly should continue. But this shows a major element of helping all kids stay in school in Batavia and graduate. The other factor has to do with jobs and housing. And Lynn Bezin of Reliant Real Estate, if you run into Lynn, please, I've already told her thanks, but tell her thanks if you would. She helped give a perspective of what's happening. And that's on page 30 and 31. On page 30, it talks about the housing market, in her words, it's been steady Eddie for a long time. There are very few new developments. Rental market doesn't have a lot of choices. And notice what she says, and this was in January when I talked to her. She explained that there was only 8 houses for sale in Batavia for families. Wow. So, she does explain how there are empty nesters like me who don't want to move from Batavia, but there aren't a lot of options for empty nesters to downsize. Now you might say, why am I talking about empty nesters? Well, a valuable asset you have are the number of family-sized homes you have. So if there are opportunities for empty nesters who really, according to Lynn, really want to stay in Batavia, to downsize into those kinds of homes that empty nesters would like, that puts on the market a valuable asset, and that's family-sized homes. Well, not to be corny, but guess who buys family-sized homes? Families. So something to watch and work with the developers and those who and the codes folks and the planners of how there could be more diversified and encourage maybe more housing development, all levels of housing development, not just family-sized homes, but even, as I mentioned earlier, even for empty nesters who want to stay in Batavia. They don't want to move to Florida. They'll visit Florida, but they'd rather stay where their family is and where they feel safe. And that's what I've learned from doing this for the past 10 years in particular. So, here's something that's interesting. Had a great conversation with the planning office at the Genesee County. They shared how that the potential of a chip factory in a town near you, not in your town, but in a town near you, which they suggest, you came close, by the way, I believe that was what he told me, came very close in this past year, that major employer chip factory would happen there. And his insights were that hopefully that would spur, particularly in Batavia City and in the town of Batavia, housing, and not only, and also the neighboring towns, but folks like to gravitate to a more urban setting to live. Because otherwise, because of the excellent throughway, you may lose potential population. They'll say, geez, I'll just drive to the chip factory from Buffalo or Rochester. So without the opportunities for housing, you may not gain new residents if that employment nearby came about. So it all ties in. So hopefully if that chip factory comes about, that may spur housing development, not only in the city, but in your town, to encourage folks to not commute, but frankly, move to a good job. And frankly, the population center is Batavia, as shown by your pattern of live births and your pattern of continued population over the past 10 years. So what does it all mean? Well, we'll go to the summary and then I'll stop. On page 33 and page 34, for those who like to read it, it's on page 33. For those who like to look at the numbers, it's on page 34. Let's look at page 34. My approach is to give at least 3 enrollment projection scenarios. One being the most conservative and one being optimistic. In the study, I explain where the data comes from to make those projections. But if you look at scenario X, which is the low, and scenario Z, which is the high, and let's compare it to what your current enrollment is. In 21-22, you have 332 children in K1. Each of the enrollment projections, even the low conservative one, suggests in 5 years you'll gain some students. All the way up to optimistic you may gain an additional 20 students in the next 5 years. Now you might say, gee, Paul, that doesn't sound like a lot. Well, given the overall decline of population and kids in New York State schools, this is actually pretty good. You're at the very least stable. And in all likelihood, you will gain the equivalent of almost a full class section of kids in K1. Take a look at grades 2 through 4. Same thing. It suggests that right now you have 460 children. You may have between 485 and 499 in the next 5 years. Remember when we started out, we looked at the first picture that showed what was happening, K5 enrollment, and there was a decline. And I said that's important because they become your grades 6 through 12. Well, here's a reflection of that. Currently, you have 633 children in 5 through 8. The most conservative projection has you at 614 grades 5 through 8 in 8 years. 620 in 8 years, the mid-range, and the high range of 628, which means stable, pretty close to stable. You might say, well, gee, Paul, why are you talking about 8 years? Because in your planning, if you're planning facilities, SED will want you to plan based on these grade levels 8 years out. But I give you all the other years too in the appendix. So that's why we're using what SED asks schools to use. 5 years for K through 6, 8 years for the middle years, 8 years out for the middle year grades, and 10 years out for the high school. Your high school in 9 through 12, all three enrollment projections suggest a smaller population in 9 through 12 over the next 10 years. From 536 to 550 compared to 641. So the likelihood of you having a small or 9 through 12 high school is highly likely over the next 10 years. Unless, see, that's what's important. The mathematics of looking at history, and I give you that, I always show my work. I want you to see where everything came from. I don't want you to take my word for anything. But you see, remember we talked about variables that could happen? Well, again, if that chip factory came in, there's some ifs here. If that came in, and if there was housing within the Batavia catchment area, your school district, to encourage people to say, well, no, I don't want to commute from Buffalo. I don't want to commute from Rochester. I'd rather, God, this great job, let's move closer. But that takes housing availability. That could entice new population, often with many of those households having children. And in all likelihood, they may be children not just of elementary, but also secondary. So it's all those ifs that can change what the mathematics show by looking at your historical enrollment past. So it's exciting in a way, because things happen that you can, as a board, politically can help encourage, like planning by the city, planning by the county, your efforts of helping encourage more housing to be available in Batavia. And not just houses to buy. Notice what the realtor said. There is a severe lack of rental property also for folks who don't want to buy. So it's kind of on a brink of positiveness if those kinds of things happen. And with that, I'll stop and encourage, if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Any questions? Anybody? Okay, I think we're all set.
Good.
Mr. Severus, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. And if something comes up in your planning or whatever, just tell Jason or Scott, they'll call me. Again, I'm available right through June to help whatever I can in your planning. Okay?
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. Take care.
You too.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Next Next up, financial summary report. Everybody's most favorite thing to hear now. Mr. Scott Rosansky. Take it away, Scott.
December of 2021 compared to December of 2020. It's on page 170 of your board packet. Revenues real property tax items. That's our tax penalties and pilots. That increased 131,000 compared to last year, or about 18%. We had an increase in pilot billings. New HP Hood billing came on. We did project. We get a schedule. We maintain a schedule of all the pilots. The pilots are payments and lower taxes, and they generally run the first 2 years at 0%, then of assessed value, then next 2 years 20% of assessed value, and then 40% until they get to year 10, and then they come on the tax roll. But before that, there's separate billings outside the tax roll. So we had a budget increase of $249,000 based on our schedule. As I reported last time, with the increase in assessed values on residential property, that does not have an impact on commercial property. We're projecting about a $96,000 under budget in this area because the tax rate went down versus what we were projecting a year ago. We'll continue to monitor it, but it's just something you need to be aware of. The non-property tax items. This is a utility tax. This goes back to the 1960s when the public voted to have a utility tax in lieu of a sales tax. And it's up 18,000 compared to last year, or 6.34%. Been tracking this for 18 years. We're on the bottom third, like the 7th lowest out of that 18-year period through December. Our 5-year average, we're doing better than our 5-year average through December is 305,000, and so we're 11,000 greater than our 5-year average through December. And our 10-year average through December is 322, or about 5,500 less. So we're in the range, and we should be on target to meet our budget in this area. Last year, we had 686,000. We budgeted 675 this year, and we're running ahead of last year, so we should be a little better than last year. Sale of property. Next item is highlighted, is up 88,000. This past fall, we surplused a couple vehicles in our maintenance department. It was a Hyundai loader and a John Deere tractor with forks, and we sold one on Auctions International. The other one we traded in, and so those revenue sources increase this line item compared to last year. We are buying one larger Kubota tractor, which does it all, and that was off state contract. Miscellaneous, it's a decrease of 39,000, or about 7% through December. And this is really an E-rate timing issue. A few years ago, we did some extra E-rate. We had E-rate funding available, extra E-rate funding available, and we did a couple projects over 2 years. Last year, we got reimbursed $97,000 in October of 2020. And this year, the second phase, 140 came in, but it came in January. So we'll see that next month. But, so we're just, it's a timing issue compared to last year. We are looking at a new, every 5 years, the extra E-rate funding resets, and we are looking at a new one for the remainder of this year or into next year. And, you know, we spend the money, and then we get the money about a year or two later type thing. The area of state aid, it's an increase of $548,000 or 7.66%. There was an increase in the TRS rate from 8.86% to 9.93%. As I've reported in the past, the state makes payments on our behalf for our share of the TRS, and then we record that as revenue, so state aid revenue. So that's part of that change, and then also, second part of that change is, like a little over a year ago, the state had withheld some money, and then eventually they were withholding 20% as a result of COVID, and then eventually federal funding came in, and then they started releasing and making districts whole. So we're starting to catch up when compared to last year at this point in time. On the expense side, only $169,000 increase, or 0.89%. This is a little skewed, as I reported previously. We did an accounting entry that normally happens at year end earlier, where our accrued payroll was processed, I think in September or October, and so it reduced our payroll expense. It usually happens in June, but we're trying to get closer to the beginning of the school year. So that's about $618,000. So technically, if we were doing a comparison, payroll to payroll, payroll would be up, or that number would be up in our $620,000. But moving forward, we're gonna, next year we'll do it in the month of July, and then we'll be current from that point on. We'll have 2 or 3 months next year where this adjustment is, but then a year from now, we'll be apples to apples in our conversation. BOCES increased $676,000, or about 27%. And that's an increase in services in 2 areas. We've contracted with BOCES for remote instruction of our 7 to 12 students, and then also technology purchases. We purchased things earlier with the supply chain issues. We wanted to get ahead of the game. We purchased our technology earlier than waiting till year end, because there's been significant delays with our technology. Central services is a decrease of $241,000, or 15.66%. And this really relates to June 30th year in 2020, where we had a lot of purchases to prepare for COVID when we came back for the 2021 school year. So a lot of year-end purchasing was happening, and then those purchases orders carried over, and we paid them in the months of July and August, so that increased those expenditures significantly. And those were extra purchases, items that weren't budgeted for, but we had surplus in the 1920 year, and we shifted our resources to buy those items that we needed for COVID. Instructional media is an increase of $323,000, and this is really the BOCES technology purchases that we have that I talked about. And then transportation, an increase of $122,000, or 32%. And this is a result of longer bus rides. A year ago, we were still on hybrid, and so our bus rides were shorter. We pay per hour with our bus company, STA. So a 2-hour bus, for example, on an annual basis costs us, we'll say, $50,000. A 3-hour bus costs us, we'll say, $53,000. When we are full this year, but there's less bus drivers, so John Kennedy and Jackson students are together, that increases the bus time, where we were beforehand, when there was enough drivers, we had shorter bus times. Now with less drivers, and having to go school to school, our bus runs are a little longer, so we're paying a little bit more per bus run. So it's pretty much the same number of buses as last year, but the increase in the rate that we pay plus the increase in time, we're spending a little bit more in transportation. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Anything? All right, Scott, thanks.
Okay.
All right, next up, student ex officio report, Miss Kylie Tatarka.
Hi, good evening, Ward. So first, I want to say on February 8th, the high school officially implemented their pilot for the hats and hoods change in dress code. The conditions include the hat or hood cannot cover up the whole face, bandanas are not a part of the pilot and should not be worn. Any logos or writing on the items cannot violate rules in the student handbook. No full face ski mask can be worn. If a staff member asks a student to remove their hood or hat because they are concerned about an issue involving that piece of clothing, that student must comply. And students who do not follow the expectations will no longer get the privilege of participating in the pilot. The high school will gather information and feedback from staff and students at the end of March, which will then be presented to the board at the following meeting. And the next three things are just a little fun about what we've been doing. So the high school snow coming week is this week from February 14th to the 18th. Students have been competing in the snowman building competition, a joke competition, and many dress-up days, which today's was anything but a backpack day, where many students brought in weird items to store their Chromebooks and notebooks, and one of my friends even brought a pizza box for his Chromebook. Winter sports have been finishing up. Most of them are bringing home amazing wins from their games, and students are actively looking forward to spring sports that are starting soon. And finally, the high school's vocal concert was yesterday, February 16th, which was performed in the middle school due to the high school auditorium's need for repair. And the rock band's concert has been moved to March 24th in order to be able to use the high school auditorium. And that's all.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now, superintendent's report,
Yeah.
Mr. Jason Smith.
Thank you. I want to just recognize a few staff members who could not be here tonight to receive their 25-year pin. We had Ann Krasnowski, who's a teacher aide at John Kennedy. John Kirkwood, science teacher, who's actually at the hockey game tonight, a science teacher at the high school. And then Lori Noguera, who's a special education teacher at the middle school. We will be sure to find them next week to give them their pins and certificates. I want to hit two COVID items here real fast. We expect to have information on the status of the ever popular mask mandate. We expect that to have a decision made in the beginning of March. Advocacy efforts still continue, both on my part and on my colleagues' part, to lobby for more local decision making. So we expect to have more information on that in March, and I have assured staff and parents and even students that once we have that information, we will be ready to make the right decision. COVID test kits, they still continue. We are still encouraging parents to pick up their test kits. We have enough to give to staff. So at this point, we're handing out one test kit per student, and there's 2 test kits. There's 2 tests in each kit. So those are being handed out as we speak, with more pickups to happen after the February midwinter recess. I want to just take a minute and recognize some of our athletes that have received recognitions. We had our track and field, our boys track and field team won sectionals this past weekend. We had 2 wrestling sectional champions, Casper Stewart and Caden Marucci. Our boys swimming had 1 sectional championship, Harrison Southall, and our girls won the GR Nagaralee's intersectional championship, where Sophie Fulton was named swimmer of the meet. So I want to recognize those student athletes and representing the school district well. We also had our first sectional win Tuesday night in our shared hockey team. It was a great game. And I don't know, do we have the results of the game yet?
I haven't had no updates yet.
Okay, so I want to congratulate them as well. On to some facility updates. I shared with you an email today. As Kylie has said, we had to move some concerts to the middle school. Roof repair has begun today, much to my pleasure and Scott's pleasure. We expect to have the auditorium back in some use by March 1st to make room for all the concerts and events in March. So that is happening as we speak. Other pieces happening. We're in the process of getting permission from NYSA to begin the bakery project over at Jackson. The former bakery building there that has been donated to us is going to be demolished. That's going to give us 16 parking spaces as well as some new green space, and we will inform the neighbors in that part of town as we draw closer to that date. So I just would have you check your emails as well. I sent you some more detailed information on that, but that is proceeding in the right direction as well. Scott, did I miss anything on that?
No.
Got it? Okay. As Kylie said, we had our concert last night. You had a beautiful solo, by the way, so make sure you recognize that. We had the concert last night at the middle school. We have a winter guard competition here Saturday at the high school. I'm looking forward to being part of that. I was sticking with the theme of art and music. Our art show at the Richmond Library begins on March 1st. It goes through the whole month. I attended the art show last month at the Go Art, and that was also very nicely done as well. We celebrated Black History Month during the month of February. We had various social media posts out there recognizing Black History Month, and March is Women's History Month. I'm working with our principals and Dr. Corey on events to recognize Women's History Month as well. My entry plan continues. Probably the highlight is having lunch with the students once a week. I lunch with Kylie. I call like an open Q&A. The only thing I can't promise that they ask for is to have more snow days, so I kind of get that out there right there, but they always like to talk about that. Black History Month, Women's History Month. I want to recognize our unified bowling team. At the legislative breakfast last month, our team was recognized as a Excellence in Student Services Award. That's under the director, Mike Bromley, and who's the coach?
Teresa Morrell.
Okay, PE teacher, right?
Corin Cope.
So we took a picture, and we have received several recognitions as well. Passed that for the board to see. So I want to thank the athletic director, Mike Bromley, and our coach, and of course our students as well for the great job they have done with that. And I think I got it all. Just as an update, we have our retreat on March 12th. You should have received an email from one of our facilitators to do a brief survey, so make sure you please do that. And that is my report. Thank you, John.
Okay. Next up is agenda alteration, which we do have. You have it in front of you. Do I need to read these, or do we just? Well, I don't really think anybody needs to really read anything. Everybody's done that already, so. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda alterations as they are?
So moved.
Who said that? Was that Jen?
Yeah.
Second? Mr. Roll? Could you take the vote, please?
Jennifer Lundy,
Yes.
Mr. Roll,
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman,
Yes.
Mr. Regal,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes. Okay, consent items, next on the agenda. Do we just do these all at once?
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, we can. Yes, we can do all at once. Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to accept consent items as are, as is?
So moved.
Mr. Regal, third. Second? Second. Mr. Roll. Vote, please.
Mr. Regal,
Yes.
Mr. Roll,
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman,
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy,
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes.
I just want to also comment. We also have 4 retirees in there as well. Lorraine Gamick, who is here tonight, Sarah Grammatical, Elizabeth DeFries, and Julie Mancuso. We thank them for their years of service, and we will recognize them later on in the year.
Thank you. That looks like old business. Am I looking at this right?
Yep, and just take those one at a time, Jen.
Take these one at a time?
Yep.
All right. Under old business, Board of Education meeting schedule, revision for a budget workshop. Any questions on that, any discussion?
I work with Scott and we had modified that, to be more respectful of your time and to, be more efficient, so
Okay.
that's a minor change there.
Alright. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman? Second?
Second.
Mr. Riegel? And take a vote.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes. Next up is the baseball trip approval from April 8th through the 16th, 2022, to Fort Pierce, Florida. It was presented to us back in January by Coach Patrick and by AD Director Mr. Bromley. Can I, any questions on that, or have a motion?
Yeah.
So moved. Mr. Riegel? Second?
Second.
Mr. Roll? Call the vote, please.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes. Next up, revised campus construction management, 2021 Batavia High School emergency roof repair, phase 1. Accept proposed bid from Spring Sheet Metal and Roofing, LLC. Include the cost of performance and payment bond. Motion?
So moved.
Ms. Ledbetter, second?
Second.
Mr. Riegel? Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes. Next up, 2020 Vision Capital Project, SEQRA, negative declaration confirmed for demolition of the donated bakery property located at 245 Liberty Street, Batavia, and revision of the plan to include creating additional parking area, green space, and pedestrian walkway adjacent to the Jackson Primary School.
So essentially, that's a environmental review process that we have to go through, so that's all that is.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Ms. Bowman? Second?
Second.
Mr. Riegel? Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes. We are on to new business now. Do these all at one? Individually?
If you could, well, if you want, if you could just like do letter F, separately, but you could do all the rest as the same.
Okay, so under new business, A, B, C, D and D have been deleted. So just need a motion to accept A, B, and C.
And F.
And,
Well,
no,
you wanna
we're
say
gonna
that
do
by
that one
itself,
separate.
yeah.
Oh, you're gonna do
Yep,
that separate? Okay,
gonna do that one
sorry.
separate.
Okay.
So motion for A, B, and C.
So moved.
Mr. Riegel, second.
Second.
Mr. Roll, could you call the vote, please?
Mr. Rowe? Yep. Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes.
You guys tripped me up that time.
And then letter F, resolution to support New York State Senate Bill S 7600, amendment of penalty for cyberbullying.
So Barb, you wanna comment on that, and then I'll talk some more?
Senator Rapp, did a Zoom call with Mr. Smith and myself on the cyberbullying bill, how he's making it, better, stronger. He's making it stronger, and it's an important area that I think all of the school districts will benefit from. And I was personally very impressed with Senator Rapp's commitment to the topic of cyberbullying, because it's not the easiest area to control or get a handle on, and his willingness to tackle it is very important.
Right. So what we're looking for is a motion, or is approval from the board to endorse this bill. It hasn't passed yet, and then we will then follow it up with Senator Rath and possibly a press release as well, so our parents and family know that the board and the school is behind what he's trying to get done. So Barb, I want to thank you for being part of those calls with me. Okay, thanks.
Good. Right. Can I have a motion to accept resolution to support New York State Senate Bill S 7600, amendment of penalty for cyberbullying?
So move.
Ms. Bowman, second please.
Second.
Mr. Riegel. Call the vote, please.
Mrs. Bowman?
Yes.
Mr. Riegel?
Yes.
Mrs. Lundy.
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Mr. Marucci?
Yes. Okay, next is other reports, and I don't think we have anything. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Mr. Regal, second. Mr. Roll. Call the vote, please.
Mr. Regal.
Yes.
Mr. Rowe.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowman.
Yes.
Mrs. Lemon.
Yes.
Mr. Marucci.
Yes. Okay, meeting is adjourned.